All right, I think I'm going to start us off. So first of all, I'd like to welcome everybody, to welcome you to the Canadian Parks and Recreation Association webinar today. Our topic is Gender Equity in Recreational Sport, Engaging Girls aged 9 to 15. My name is Krista Costas-Bradstreet. I am the Director of Partnerships and Policy for CPRA. And I will be moderating our webinar this afternoon. So again, I want to thank you for joining us. And I'm looking forward to a great hour-long presentation with you today. Before we start, I did want to acknowledge the support of Sport Canada for our initiative and for the webinar today. Just to give you a sense of what we're going to do over the next hour, I'm going to just kick us off by providing a very short presentation about CPRA and a little bit about our initiative, our Gender Equity in Recreational Sport initiative. I'm going to turn it over then to our speaker, Geneviève Leduc. After Genevieve's presentation, we will take some questions. Because all of you are actually on mute, there is a section on the right-hand side of your screen on your panel where you can type in your questions. My colleague Olivia is going to monitor the questions. She will then ask them to Geneviève, and then she'll answer them. And if we have some time at the very end and we can take some additional questions, we'll do that. We also have a second speaker, Dr. Teresa I told her I was going to get this wrong, Alentejano, and she's also going to do a presentation, and we'll also have some time for some questions after her presentation. So we will have a number of opportunities for you to ask some questions, and if we don't get through them all, we're happy for you to send some to us, and we'll get the answers to you as best we can. So hopefully that makes sense for our agenda today. So what I'd like to do, as I mentioned, is just spend a couple of minutes explaining to you who CPRA is and why we're involved in this project, and then a little bit about the project. So basically, Canadian Parks and Recreation Association has 3 strategic goals. We are a voice, a national voice for parks and recreation, advancing the collective interests of our members. We are a community in that we are a national network dedicated to the well-being of people, communities, and the natural and built environments. And we are a service provider, so we provide services for our members and partners that cultivate dialogue, learning, and innovation. We do have a new strategic plan. If you're interested in it, you're welcome to go to the website. It talks a little bit more about the work of CPRA. We are a very small organization, although we represent the entire country, and we do reach about 90% of communities across Canada. But we do this through our collective experience and expertise of our 13 provincial and territorial associations. We do have board members from every province and territory. We have 13 staff, again, from all the provinces and territories. We have a number of volunteers, government partners, and then we work with a number of other sectors: physical activity, sport, therapeutic recreation, environment, transportation. So a number of different of sectors who help CPRA move our strategic goals forward. And as I mentioned, we have a small staff of about 5. We have our CEO, we have myself as the Director of Policy and Partnerships, we have a Director of Communications and an Administrator, and we also have a Director of Projects as well. We are very involved and have been involved with the Framework for Recreation. CPRA worked with governments, provincial and territorial governments, to develop the Framework for Recreation. The whole process started in and around 2011, but the plan itself goes from 2015 to 2025. So this is actually the 5-year anniversary of the Framework for Recreation. So you will be hearing a little bit more about that in the next year or so. And again, it does go until 2025. All of the work that we try to do, so all of our strategic plan and the goals that we have set are really framed by the Framework for Recreation. And this webinar as well, all of the webinars that we present, about 4 a year, plus these ones that we will be doing around gender equity, all look at some of the different goals or address the different goals. And I would say, as we're looking at gender equity in this project, it is really around goal 2, where we're talking about inclusion and access. So just a couple of slides just to give you a bit of background on this particular initiative. In November 2019, CPRA was awarded a contract from the Government of Canada with the intention of increasing the participation and retention of women and girls in recreational sport in Canada. We have 4 priority populations, so girls ages 9 to 15, and that's our focus for today, mothers, postnatal and or those with school-age children, women over the age of 55, and girls with intersecting identity factors. So over the next 2 years, CPRA will be designing and delivering toolkits, workshops, webinars, high-five training, community grants, and under each of these is a series of, again, different deliverables and projects that will be taking place. So please keep an eye out, because I think there's going to be a lot of information coming your way. We'll be seeking some feedback along the way. So I think it's a really exciting initiative over the next few years. In terms of the Community Grants Initiative, and we raised this one specifically because one of our speakers today is a recipient of one of the grants. This year, CPRA, for the first time, we just accepted proposals for these grants. And we had so many great proposals come in that we were able to increase the number of projects that were funded to 53. Those projects are across Canada, and again, their aim is at increasing participation and retention of women and girls in recreational sport. There will be another call for funding, and that will happen in the fall of 2020. So if you're interested in receiving one of those grants, you can go to the websites that are listed there, and there will be additional information. And finally, I just want to again acknowledge that, oh, I'm sorry, I accidentally hit my arrow. This project is supported by the Government of Canada, Sport Canada specifically, with the intention of reaching the gender equity in sport goals by 2035. So before I pass it over to Geneviève, I just want to introduce you to her. As a kinesiologist, and I think I must be touching something. No, I'm not. There we go. As a kinesiologist and holder of a PhD in nutrition, Geneviève Leduc has a rich and extensive knowledge on how daily habits impact the health and well-being of children and youth. With 15 years of experience on internationally renowned research teams, she joined Fit Spirit in 2017 and became the Senior Advisor of Programs in order to promote the mission of the organization, which is helping teenage girls to be physically active throughout their lives. With that, I will pass it over to Geneviève for her presentation. Thanks.
Thank you, Krista. And thank you everyone for joining us today. It is really a great pleasure for me to participate in this webinar. Thank you for the invitation. You can see my email address on the screen right now. Feel free to take note of it and to use it to reach out to me with any questions or comments following today's presentation. I would be super happy to continue the conversation with you later on. So today, we're trying to identify possible solutions to keep girls in sports, or to encourage them to experience something new while being active for the first time if they have never been involved in any regular physical activities or sports. Before I even start and look at the agenda for today's presentation, it is very important for me to tell you that obviously, if we knew exactly how to achieve this goal of retaining girls in sports and physical activity, we would just do it, and we would not have to host this kind of conversation. But that magic or miracle solution clearly either does not exist, or in any case, we're still looking for it. So through my presentation, I'm going to draw your attention to what is known at this moment in terms of good practices, but there's still obviously a lot of room for trial and error. It'll be my pleasure to chat with you at the end to hear your experiences and observations, which may be quite different from mine. So first, I will introduce you to Fit Spirit in a few words, just to give you a general idea of the context in which I am experimenting with a number of good practices that I'll be presenting today. And next, we will take a look at the current state of the situation regarding girls' physical activity and sports participation in the country. We're going to look at some barriers that hold girls back or keep them from being more active. And of course, the flip side of those barriers are the possible solution, and we'll finish with a word about motivation. So Fit Spirit, or Fille Active en français, is a not-for-profit organization that has been offering its service offer since 2007. To have access to our service offer, we invite schools to partner with us, and we partner with schools that welcome girls aged 12 to 17 years old. We have been very active since our foundation in Ontario and in Quebec, and we are very excited because we launched our activities in the first area of British Columbia just recently in February. Oh, it seems like there's a slide missing here. It's not a big deal, but our mission is really to make sure that we encourage girls to stay active for life, or to be active for life. And we try to do that by building a community of inspirational and committed individuals around them. And we also make sure that we offer girls opportunities to go through positive experiences related to sports and physical activity. So last year, our Pittsburgh community looked like this. So we were lucky enough to work with 285 schools, among which more than 1,000 school staff members became Pittsburgh program leaders. So we were very thankful for all those program leaders. We have also the privilege to receive the support from more than 100 Pittsburgh ambassadors. The Pittsburgh ambassadors are women who visit our partner schools to deliver motivational conferences and to lead physical activity sessions. Now, I don't want to dwell too much on the data regarding girls and physical activity, since I imagine that you're all involved in one way or another in the sports, leisure, outdoors, and PA sectors. You certainly know that in Canada, as in most other countries, we found ourselves in a situation where children and teenagers are not active enough. You also certainly know that among these young people, girls find themselves at a disadvantage as compared to boys. The Participation Report Card on Physical Activity for Children and Youth regularly reports data on that topic, so I invite you to go to visit the Participation website for more details. But if we look at the achievement of the recommendation to take part in moderate to high intensity physical activity, 60 minutes per day, so that is the recommendation or the guideline, we know that only 9% of children aged 5 to 17 reach the goal, reach the guideline. But if we remove the youngest, who are more active than teenagers, and if we remove the boys, who are also more active than girls, it is estimated that it would only be around 2.5% of girls aged 12 to 17 who meet the guidelines. Needless to say that this is making that slice of the population very, very inactive. And if we look at the situation from the organized sports side, the data tends to vary quite a bit depending on what we choose to look at precisely, but within sports federation and therefore among those children and youth that are engaged in activity, it is estimated that girls represent approximately 1 out of 3 children. To complete the situation, let's remember why this finding is worrisome. A large population-based study that was held in Quebec and was published in 2018 brought great insights into the impacts that a sedentary lifestyle can have on the overall health of young people. So in this survey, it was shown that a low level of physical activity was associated with more psychological distress, anxiety disorders, symptoms related to depression, and ADHD. Unsurprisingly, we also saw how much boys continue to be more active than girls, which puts our girls in a state of greater vulnerability in terms of their overall health. Hence, the importance of continuing to look for solutions really to encourage them to be more active. Now, let's take a look at a number of barriers that stand in the way of girls' physical activity participation in sports. I do not pretend here to present an exhaustive list, The goal is to ensure that our organizations are always on the lookout for these barriers. For me, this is really what guides a sensitive approach that shows that we understand that girls and women may be different from boys and men in their preferences and in really what prevents them from being more active. And on top of that, when you're really invested in understanding those barriers, you're already on your way to finding solutions. So let's remember that the objective for today remains to see why so many girls give up or really have no desire to be or to get involved in sports. And obviously the following barriers, so the barriers that I'm going to present here, are not or are of lesser importance, obviously, for girls who are already active. Okay, so I have separated the barriers into two main categories here for you. So first, a number of barriers fall under the more general concept of self-efficacy. Generally speaking, self-efficacy is the confidence that we have in our own abilities and potential, or the confidence that we have when it's time to tackle a challenge that seems difficult to us. So for girls, we know that this is something that can be difficult for them. So first, in terms of skills, we know that girls sometimes find themselves in deficit from early childhood when we compare them to boys. I'm pretty sure that you're well aware of the fact that this could come from the way that we interact with our children when they're very young. So from the time when they start school, many girls already realize that their skills are not quite at the same level as those of boys. But on top of that, we also know that for the same skill level, girls more often will tend to judge themselves severely or think that they're not good enough as compared to boys that tend to show more confidence in their skills. In addition, girls are often stressed when placed in a sports situation, especially if they feel like they're expected to perform well, as can be the case, as you know, in team sports context. They can also feel some stress when they're faced with an activity that is difficult to master. And while many boys will appreciate the challenge of overcoming a difficult physical task, it does not seem to be experienced as positively among girls. Many of our girls do not enjoy performing in front of a group, which they must often do in the context of competitions, tournaments, or even simply during phys ed classes. These situations can turn into very negative experiences for a very large number of girls who will then seek to leave, not participate anymore, not wanting to repeat the experience. And that's when you see the size of your groups decreasing, and we no longer see some of our regular participants, unfortunately. The second major category of barriers that I wanted to talk to you about today are those that are related to the environment in which we place girls in a sports or a physical activity setting. First, the presence of boys is one of them. In the world of sport, we often find ourselves in situations where boys and girls are separated, and as such, we might tend to think that we don't have to think about these barriers. But as stakeholders, I invite you to maybe think differently. As much as boys can appreciate the girls being in the stands to encourage them during their training, the reverse situation can really be seen as the opposite for girls, especially during adolescence. We were able to see it again this year during one of our fifth grade training sessions. I can tell you the anecdote quickly. So we had access to a beautiful gym. Everything was well. The girls were together and really deeply engaged in the activity that was proposed to them. And suddenly I was in the middle of the group, and I could see everyone's attitude changing. You know, the smiles were disappearing. Everyone kind of froze on the spot. So I looked up and I saw that the bleachers had just, filled up with the boys that were coming back from the school volleyball team, and they were taking their break. You may have witnessed events like this as well. And by this example, I don't mean to say that it's okay to convince girls that they should only take part in all girls activity, always out of the sight of boys. That's really not the goal. The objective here, is rather to be sensitive to the situation and to respect what happens during the particular period of life that is, those teenage years. And then the limits sometimes come from parents who can be more insecure and refrain the practice of their daughters. We see this happening regularly from the data that comes from the research studies where we assess active transportation and independent mobility parameters. So parents will tell us that they're willing to allow their 12, 11, 12, 13-year-old sons to use their bikes or to walk to get to school or to reach any other destinations. But when we question parents about their daughters, many of them will say that they do not give permission to their girls to do the same. You might think that there's not much that we can do about this, but as stakeholders, I think that one thing that we can do is to make sure that we look at our facilities and that we make sure that they are perceived as being safe enough for girls from a parent's perspective. So looking at the lighting that surrounds the main entrance could be one way to do that. Despite all their good intentions, the girls' negative experiences are sometimes caused by a certain level of discrimination from the adults around them. So for me, this is one reason why we should always insist on training. Coaches, teachers, whether they are volunteers or not, when being given the responsibility of a group of girls, should have been made aware of how to interact with girls and how to talk to girls. We also know how sensitive girls are to the idea of what I've called here representation, that is to say self-image perception or body image, but also the way in which we choose to put in pictures the activities to which we want to invite them. The dissatisfaction with one's body image is always something to watch out for, and it is a major obstacle for girls who do not even want to try to be active because they feel like their body is not adequate or that they do not look like girls who seem to be engaging in this or that activity. Finally, there's the whole question of time, the schedule. So in adults, we know that this is the number one reason that justifies the low level of participation, the low level of participation in physical activity. So children and youth, they're no different. They're just as busy as their parents. And so when you're interested in girls, especially when approaching puberty, you have to understand that it's not only the time on the calendar that is missing, but also the time that is allocated before and after the activities. Girls will sometimes refuse to participate if they have to change clothes in front of others, if they do not have time to take a shower before returning to their regular activities. They also have many other concerns in mind that we must be aware of, such as the whole issue of, hair removal, menstruation, makeup, hair, etc. Okay, so now I think that it is about time that we talk about solutions, but as I told you at the beginning of the previous section, talking about barriers is also looking at solutions when you choose to reverse the perspective. So I hope that it's what you've been doing so far. Those first favorable factors that you can see here on the screen may seem very general, but we still have to take the opportunity to state it clearly when we have the chance to meet between stakeholders, just like we are today. So several simultaneous strategies must be undertaken and implemented, and partnerships must be fostered. Okay. And we also need interventions that will target both individual and environmental factors. So this is all another way of saying that there's no magic recipe, as I was telling you earlier. And obviously, if we want our actions to have a real impact, our interventions must be sustainable over time. And according to what we said earlier about the barriers, we must also look at our offer, our service offer, and see if we can, really reflect on whether or not we're offering a certain balance between, the activities that are voluntary, maybe the drop-in type activities perhaps, or compulsory activities, activities which offer a participative option only rather than only a competitive component. And although it might seem quite obvious, it must be said that our activities have to be, fun. Girls like to have access to a varied and diversified offer, and they also like to be involved in activities that are trendy, unlike boys who might enjoy traditional sports a little bit more. Then I think it is our role to present a wide variety of female role models. It's important to specify that a model does not have to be perfect. It's quite the contrary. A very enthusiastic mother, for example, who is not afraid to engage in new activities, even without great skills, can be an excellent model, much more so sometimes than the Olympic athletes, even if we need our athletes as well. Among girls, it's also necessary to position the activity as an opportunity to socialize, to consolidate their social network, and to use the activity to show like they belong to a group, because it's very often the primary reason that will attract girls into sports. And we already touched the concept of girls-only activities, so I won't come back to it here, but we can certainly talk about it further during the question period if you want. Another aspect on which we have a great role to play is this one. So encouragement and demonstrations of approval from significant adults is key in the girl journey. And finally, we come back to the development of skills. So when in position to do so, we must make sure to act upstream in the development of motor skills. And how do we do that? Well, we make sure that our girls, as well as our boys, that they're exposed to a lot of free and a lot of active play opportunities, as well as numerous stimulating and engaging outdoor play situations. So my very last slide is this one, through which we will talk very briefly about motivation. For me, this is a way of summarizing good practices for retaining girls into sports. So psychologists tell us that to stimulate autonomous motivation, or to ensure that our daughters have the desire to get involved in sports on their own will, we must meet 3 of their psychological needs. So the first one is autonomy. There it is. So autonomy. In other words, you have to let them make decisions. You have to question them about their interests and their preferences. And then the need to feel competent. So alternatives, options, choices must be offered as often as possible when we lead any type of activity, to allow our participants to keep pace and to follow their own personal progression. And finally, there's the need for relatedness. We can do this by surrounding them as much as possible with peers, models, and we make sure that our activities become safe places for them to develop meaningful human relationships. When all those needs are met, studies show the following results. So there's improved in well-being and mental health, increased in physical activity participation, and even an increase in performance. So this is the end of my presentation. I will be happy to take your questions.
Thank you so much, Geneviève. That was excellent. Maybe I'll ask Olivia then to look to see if there are any questions, and open it up to our participants.
As of yet, there are no questions, but I think we'll let just a few more minutes just so that people can type in if they wish to. All right, so we have one question here from Leanne Noel. She's wondering your thoughts on girls playing in boys' teams.
Well, okay, so for sure, it is a great source of motivation for some girls to be able to take part in boys' teams. So for sure, I would encourage that we continue to offer that opportunity for girls who can see that as a challenge, and that's something, an opportunity that that brings them to a higher level of performance. So for sure, I would encourage that. I guess my point is to make sure that we offer both. So the opportunity to take part in activities that are going to be involving girls and boys together, and also a good amount of activities that will allow girls to experiment some activities just among themselves, just girls together.
Great, thank you. Sandy Shepard would like to know, what changes have you made in the schools in Ontario and Quebec?
Okay, so this is a huge question, so I'll try to answer briefly. So with schools, we're trying to look at the physical activity offer, really. So that's really what we're trying to change inside the school. And so the girls, when they sign up to become Fit Spirit participants, they know that in their school, their program leaders are going to organize for them or to lead physical activity sessions with girls only. So usually it is presented in schools as an extracurricular activity. And so girls have the opportunity to experiment with new sports, new physical activities, or new ways to be active. And we also send ambassadors. So Fit Spirit ambassadors are sent to schools to present either a motivational talk or to lead more physical activity sessions.
Great, thank you. So we're getting quite a few questions right now. Samantha Aubin would like to know, do you have any resources for activities, programs that are specifically meant for role modeling, the things you spoke about?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so on the Fit Spirit website, you're going to find some tools. So fitspirit.ca, fiactive.ca. There are some organizations in the country that are going to either be talking about, empowerment, role modeling, leadership skills. You can email me, and then I can send you some links after the presentation today.
Perfect. We have another question here from Diane Wibber. I'm hoping I'm pronouncing her last name correctly. At what age would you recommend girls-only activities in order to promote confidence?
Okay, so this is something that needs to be addressed with a certain level of sensitivity, because between the age of, I'd say, 8 and 12, so right before they hit puberty, there are some girls and some group of girls that are very happy with taking part in activities that are going to be involving boys and girls together. But sometimes it happens in a very subtle way. They're not going to seem as happy as they were before. They're not exactly sure why they now feel a little bit uncomfortable being active around boys. So I would say that as a leader, as a coach, you need to kind of be on the lookout for some changes in the attitude or in the engagement level of your girls, and maybe ask them from time to time, would you be more happy to take part in some girls-only physical activities? So I say that between the age of 8 and 12, this is most of the time when that desire is rising.
Perfect. Caitlin would like to know, do you only partner with schools? Have you partnered with municipality recreation facilities?
Yeah, that is a good question. Yeah, so we're a school-based program, and although we would love to get involved with communities, we kind of need to focus our intervention into what we're the best at doing. And so at this time, we're currently only partnering with schools.
Perfect. A question here from Taylor. When it comes to planning programs, can you give some practical examples of how Fit Spirit would accommodate autonomy and competence?
Yes. Okay. So one thing is in the type of activity that you're going to choose, sometimes in school settings, girls will have experimented with lots of team sports. And some girls are excellent at team sports, but some other girls would love to take part in more activities that have, for example, an artistic side. So that is one thing that you can do, make sure that in the facility, in school, is there a setup in place, either mirrors or, is there a way that you can play music or not? Is it a gym that is only made to be, playing basketball or other team sports? So this is something that you can start. And can you repeat the question, please, Olivia? I feel like I lost a part of the question.
Yes, sorry, 1 second.
So about the offer, what can we do?
I seem to have lost the question as well. I'm so sorry.
Okay, so I hope I answered your question. And if you'd like to know more, feel free to email me.
Great comeback. I think we have time for maybe 1 or 2 more questions. Here we have from Alyssa. Are there suggestions or resources to give parents that would encourage building autonomous motivation for their children? How to combat the displacement of parental anxieties or fears on their children, especially girls?
Oh yeah, that is a great question, and I don't know where to start with that answer. I would say that making sure that when we have the opportunity, I think that it's important to have that open and honest conversation with parents and see where their fears might be, and to really set the record straight in terms of what is the real risk or where is the real danger, and what would be the benefits of their girls being more active. And also, I'd say that the flip side of this is to also make sure that parents are not the ones making physical activity mandatory for their boys or their girls, because that is when they get to adolescence, they might want to stop everything. So in terms of autonomy, making sure that they have a word in terms of what kinds of physical activities they'd like to be involved in, or whether or not they want to be active or not. I think that is the first thing that the parents can do.
Perfect, thank you. And I think we're just going to take 1 more question. Let's see here. Is there a reason why Alberta schools are not involved in this program?
No, I mean, it's a question of resources at this time. So because we are in our service offer, as I was saying earlier, we're sending ambassadors into schools. We also have a coordination or a coordinator that is regional in all of the areas where our service offer is available. We don't have any partners to work with us at this time in Alberta, but we're expanding, we're growing. And so hopefully we'll be able to deliver our service offer in Alberta as well as soon as possible.
Thank you so much, Geneviève. And I know that there are many more questions, so we will have some additional time at the end of the webinar to address some of the other questions for Geneviève as well as our other speaker. And so actually, speaking of Alberta, I'm going to take you to Alberta right now. I'm going to introduce you to Dr. Teresa Alantangiano. She is the head coach of the University of Alberta Synchronized Swimming Club and the Excel Synchro Club in Edmonton. She's a certified Canada Level 3 coach and a FINA A judge. And it's in this capacity that she's participated at numerous international events such as the Pan Am Games, World Championships, and 2 Olympic Games, 2008 in Beijing and 2016 in Rio. Teresa holds a PhD in physical education and has taught at the University of Alberta. During her tenure on the Alberta Artistic Swimming Board, Teresa championed the expansion of grassroots programming to small communities. So she's here today to talk to us about a swim program that is being implemented at the Excel Synchro Club to engage young girls in her sport. So thank you, Teresa, for your time today and your presentation. I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you for the opportunity to present our club's work at this webinar. So I would like to, I don't have the control of, there you go, thank you. Our project aims at providing physical activity through artistic swimming opportunities to new immigrant girls, children with disabilities, and underserved girls. We are partially supported by Canada Parks and Recreation Association through the Community Grant Initiative, and it's a really important thing that we got that grant because it allows us to offer these services to people in Edmonton. Our club was created in 2012, and it's a non-for-profit organization, and its vision is children and youth have the opportunity to participate in their fullest in the sport of artistic swimming to develop both athletic and life skills that will enable them to be successful athletes and individuals throughout their lives. Our mission is to serve both general and unique groups of individuals in the artistic swimming community by providing a respectful, positive, and enjoyable environments that allow members, regardless of ability, to achieve their full potential in the sport of artistic swimming. On top of serving our membership that comes to us, we are always looking into other opportunities to support our community. Most of our community is composed of girls. Synchronized swimming is old. Artistic swimming is also for boys nowadays, but it's much more easy for us to recruit girls. 99% of our membership is girls. We are really grateful to the grants that we have received so far that enabled us to reach to our community and to help girls become more active. We were very lucky to receive the RBC Community Grant in 2015, the University Grant this past season, and now we have received the Gender Equity in Recreation and Sports. So we are really grateful for those people who supported our work and made it possible. Do we have another? Okay. Our specific program, here are some of the highlights of our specific program that we have the opportunity to present today. We got the grant approved, We are now working with the other stakeholders that are around us to support our program. We are trying to get to contact organizations to work with us so that we can get some referrals to our program. And after this, we intend to have our first intake in July. We hope to have 4 intakes throughout the year, and we hope to have people understanding that the importance of physical education, especially for these segments of the population that typically don't have opportunity to get involved in physical education. Our program, our classes include dry land, physical literacy oriented, including games, water sections for artistic swimming, and also including games within the activities and fun activities. We create opportunities in our club for interaction in between the members, with the hopes to create a cohesive group that wants to remain together. So basically we have like members of the club that in different segments of the club coming and working with our recreational program to interact with them. We have water shows that they demonstrate the ability at the end of each session. And we always encourage parents to get together to discuss, to exchange information and discuss their experiences. There's always some area where we work that they can get together, so we also support that type of activities. Our programs are free or cost efficient, so the parents see the value in the product that we are offering. They are dynamic in essence, offer a variety of activities to appeal most of the participants. There is a balance between learning the sport, having fun, and interacting with the community. We emphasize as much as we can that games with aims should be in part of our practices for our coaches. We also emphasize the need to learn the proper sport technique, because we are also a competitive club, so we want them to make sure that what they learn can bring them something in the future if they so decide to go competitive. Our coaches are passionate about what they are doing. They are paid coaches. They are all NCCP trained, and they get paid according to their experience. We ask for feedback throughout the sessions. We collect feedback throughout multiple occasions of our session. The coordinators sometimes go to the pool to collect surveys. We tried online surveys, but they did not really get too many answers. So nowadays we tend to go to the pool to get feedback from the parents towards the end of each of our sessions. We also do coaches surveys, and we gather information on what can be changed in our program, and we then change whatever is needed for the next session of our program. This is at the bottom here. We have one type of feedback that we received, which is very positive. It's from a swimmer with disabilities, and the mom said that this program really contributed in building her kids' confidence, resilience, and self-esteem. We have challenges, as everybody. The challenges we encounter is engaging with partners. Sometimes people are protective of their membership. Sometimes they don't pass the information into the other members. But over the years, we were able to develop good relationships with some groups in town, and we try to keep building them. For instance, here in Edmonton, we have some good relationships with the primary care network, the boys and girls, the nurses practitioners, and some indigenous people's groups. We intend to reach out to them again when we start trying to get some more membership to run this program. We are almost there at this phase. We also intend to connect the Branding Institute for Learning, the Mennonite Center for Newcomers, and the Catholic Social Services for referrals so that we can get some newcomers to join our program. Another thing that we have as a challenge is recruitment when they have to fill out paperwork. Sometimes they don't have access to computers and so on. So sometimes the language is a problem. So we get somebody to go to the pool to help them with that. To minimize, we also have problems sometimes with commitment. Sometimes people register and don't show up. We send them emails to the people who helped us identify them as potential members of the club, and we ask them to contact them to minimize the problem with commitment. We also offer programs throughout the city so that people can pick the locations that are near them so that they can easily access the activity. We are always trying to find partners to support us. And so we are very lucky that we managed to get this grant so that we can support our program further. And we are very thankful for this grant that is supporting us for this year. I believe that this is what I have to present. I would like to know if there are any questions.
Thank you, Teresa. So I'll turn it over to Olivia to see if there are any questions. Maybe while she's looking for people's responses, you could talk a little bit about your initiatives related to the grant.
Yeah, this is the program related to the grant. So we are opening spots within our program to get people that are identified in our grant as those more in need. So there will be open spots and specific classes for new Canadian girls, children with developmental disabilities, and underserved girls. So we're creating on top of our classes not only spots available within our classes, but also new classes to make sure that we offer activities for these specific groups that we identified.
Awesome, thank you.
Perfect, so we have...
Yep, go ahead.
Sorry, Krista. There's a few questions coming in. What percentage of enrollment increase did you experience from the grant?
The grant has not started yet. We just received the grant in February. We are in the planning stages of it for this specific grant. So we intend to serve 55 swimmers. Our plan is to serve 55 swimmers, 16 swimmers that are children with disabilities, and the other spots for either underserved girls or new immigrants. We hope to achieve this goal, but that's the goal of the grant.
And I think we have one last question here. Do you just talk to your partners or send flyers and or emails? What have you found is the best way to help partners refer to your program?
Sorry, I didn't understand the question.
I think the person wants to know if you collaborate virtually with your partners, or do you what's the best way that you found
to communicate
would help your yes exactly and to refer to your program?
We tend to do it by email, and then we follow up. Sometimes it's phone calls. It depends on the person that we are contacting with. Sometimes we have parents that are already in the club that know somebody. We try to get as much different ways of contacting people.
Perfect, thank you. I think that does about it for the this portion of the questions. I think that there's a few more from Genevieve's presentation that still need to be answered.
Great.
So
yeah.
So
maybe we'll take a couple more questions, and then Genevieve has agreed that if we can't get through all of them, but she is willing to answer some questions if people want to send her an email, a follow-up email after the webinar. But yeah, we'll take a couple more questions, and then we just have one more slide, and then we'll be finished by 2:30. So over to you, Olivia.
Thank you, Krista. We have one here that says, when discussing barriers, she wonders why the comparison was girls versus boys instead of girls who are engaged in physical activity versus those who are not.
Yeah, that is a good point. I could have done it that way as well. I feel like for girls who are not seeing those barriers as barriers, I feel like they're pretty much, their situation can be pretty much compared to the situation that boys are placed in. So I feel like it wouldn't be super different to look at the barriers that are specific to girls and to the barriers that are specific to girls that are not active, because the girls that are already active do not face those barriers anyways. So I feel like that kind of answers both questions. I think it does anyway, so feel free to email me if you feel like it's not the case.
Perfect. And another one here, in an organization that doesn't encourage development of women in sports because they don't see the importance of it, are there any tools to change this culture?
Mm-hmm. Well, I don't know. Sometimes, it depends on the type of organization. For sure, sometimes the data will have a certain effect. Sometimes people are not super aware of the difference between the situation of girls and boys. So that is one thing. Sometimes also it's important to kind of sometimes it's the data and sometimes it's the storytelling. So when there's a girl, a woman who can testify to, what physical activity or their involvement in sports has changed into, their self-esteem, into their academic performance, into, I don't know, how they were confident into entering the workforce. Sometimes that storytelling can speak louder than the data. So it really depends on who is our audience here. But I would go with some data and some storytelling.
Perfect, thank you. And I think we're going to answer just one last question. How do you eliminate the barrier of ensuring you are building the girls' confidence, yet ensuring you're offering an inclusive program that doesn't segregate the genders?
Yeah, well, that's a tough one for sure. I'd say that, being sensitive to all of our youth, everyone that is coming to participate into our activity is key. And sometimes, sometimes I'm even wondering if, because for sure there are a certain number of boys who would love to benefit from, an approach just like the Fifth Period approach, not focusing on competition or performance, being involved in different types of physical activities. I'm sure that many boys would feel like this is the type of activities that they would want to be involved in as well. And so I think you need to use your best judgment. So sometimes it is a good thing to go with, separating boys and girls. But sometimes it's just maybe modifying or changing slightly the way that you're going to offer or to advertise your activity. And so sometimes you might attract boys and girls that can be very similar in their desire and their and the barriers that they perceive.
Great. Thank you so much, Genevieve, for taking some extra questions. And again, as I mentioned, if anybody has additional questions that we didn't get to or that you think about afterwards, Genevieve's agreed to answer some additional questions from you if you want to send her a quick email. So just very quickly, because we're at 2:30, I just wanted to let you know, I mentioned it at the beginning, CPRA hosts 4 webinars a year. There are many different topics that we talk about. So the next one will be taking place on Wednesday, May 20th at 12 noon, and the topic is on cybersecurity. We have 2 speakers from BDO Canada, and really the goal is to foster awareness and educate recreation professionals about what you can do to protect yourself and your organizations from different cyber attacks and so on. So we'll talk about 3 major things: indications, or how do you identify whether or not you have been hacked, or your website or any of your other mechanisms have been hacked, implementation of best practices and policies, and then how to prevent future cyber attacks. We don't have the registration information up yet, but we will, so please visit our website at cpra.ca, and we will have some information up there shortly on the webinar. We have another one in September, but again, we'll bring you more information about that shortly. So finally, I just wanted to thank all of you for joining us this afternoon for this great webinar. Wanted to thank Sport Canada for their support to enable us to do this. I want to thank the RAP team for hosting us today, and then of course Geneviève and Teresa for their presentations and their insight into the work being done to help encourage girls to be more active and retain them in recreational sport. So again, thank you everybody, and I hope we'll see you again at another webinar in the future. Have a great day.